तमेव लोकशङ्करं नमामि शङ्करं गुरुं नमामि शङ्करं गुरुं नमामि शङ्करं गुरुं.
माला सुधा कुंभ विबोध मुद्रा विद्या विराजत करवारिजाताम् अपार कारुण्य सुधाम्बुराशिं श्री शारदाम्बां प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यं. सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Offering my Sashtanga Pranamas to the Padapadmas of the Ubhay Jagadgurus. In the last episode, we commenced a discussion of the Malahanikareshwarashtaka composed by Jagadguru Shri Vidhusekhara Bharati Mahaswami. Today we will be looking at the second verse in the octet. Sharvaya Kashyapa Munindra Kulabdhichandra Srimad Vibhandaka Kridagriya Tapas Phalaya Shri Rishyashringa Muni Sevya Padambujaya Nityan Namostu Malahanikareshwaraya. In this shloka, the Jagadguru has summarized the connection between the Malahanikareshwara linga and the Rishi Parampara that is renowned in Sringeri. As we all know, the Maharshi from whom Sringeri derives its name is Rishyashringa Maharshi. His father was Vibhandaka Maharshi, by whose tapas the Malahanikareshwara linga came into being. His father was the illustrious Prajapati, the Manasaputra of Brahma, Kashyapa Maharshi, whose tapas took place in the Kashmir region. So the three munis, Kashyapa Maharshi, Vibhandaka Maharshi and Rishyashringa Maharshi, have been mentioned in this shloka. In the outset itself, the Jagadguru refers to Parameshwara as Sharva, Sharvaya. The word Sharva is a common epithet of Shiva. We see the Vedas also, the Shatavadhani and many other Veda mantras also refer to Parameshwara as Sharva. The word Sharva means he who pains or torments. Shrinati, hinasti, iti Sharvaha. This name represents Shiva as the Laya Karta, as the Paramatma who has to now perform dissolution, who has to now dissolve the cosmos. He performs himsa of the beings there in order to dissolve them back into their unmanifest forms. So that Parameshwara is called Sharva. There is one more Vishesha that pertains to the Sharva name. As we know, Parameshwara is referred to as Ashtamurti, he who has 8 forms. Those are the Panchabhutas, Surya, Chandra and the Jiva. And each of these murtis is given a particular name. We are all very familiar with these names because these are the same names that we use to do Tarpana at the end of any Shiva Puja. The Bhavaya Devaya Namaha, Sharvaya Devaya Namaha, Ishanaya Devaya Namaha, Pashupataya Devaya Namaha, Rudraya Devaya Namaha, Ugraya Devaya Namaha, Bhimaya Devaya Namaha, Mahate Devaya Namaha. So these 8 names, Bhava, Sharva, Rudra, Ugra, Pashupati, Rudra, all of these 8 names are the names of each of Shiva's Ashtamurtis. And therein also, the Murti that presides over Bhumi, the Murti that is the Antaryami of Bhumi, controls Bhumi and is present throughout Bhumi, is known as Sharva. That is why the Shiva Purana also tells us, Urvi Sharvatmika Murtihi iti Shastrasya Nirnayaha. When discussing the Ashtamurtis, the Shiva Purana tells us that the Murti that presides over Bhumi is called Sharva. It is very appropriate that the Jagadguru has used this name to Shiva in this particular shloka. Because we are discussing the origin of the Malahanikareshwara linga, the name Sharva is quite apt here. If we look at many kshetras, you will see that Paramatma has some connection with the Panchabhutas in some places. For example, in Arunachala, Parameshwara appeared there as a blazing pillar of fire. and then that later became the mountain we see as Arunachala today. So there Parameshwara is called the Agni Linga. In the same way, in Chidambara, Parameshwara does not have a corporeal form, but he exists there as Akasha. There is no Murti. The Akasha there is the Akasha Linga. So he is called the Akasha Linga there. In the same way, in Sringeri as well, upon the prayer of, or pleased with the prayer of Vibhandaka Maharshi, pleased with the tapas of Vibhandaka Maharshi, Paramatma manifested here as a linga that sprung from the earth. And that is why we also see that the linga goes very deep into the earth too. In fact, when renovation was being done to the Malahanikareshwara temple, all efforts to find the base of the linga proved futile. In this way, the Malahanikareshwara linga sprung from the earth. So it is very appropriate that the word used to refer to Parameshwara here in this shloka that discusses the origin of the Malahanikareshwara linga is Sharva, the name that is specific to the Bhumurti of Shiva. And then we look at how this linga came into being. Kashyapa Munindra Kulabdhi Chandra Srimad Vibhandaka Krita Agriya Tapaf Phalaya. He is the Tapaf Phala, the fruit of the tapas of Vibhandaka Maharshi, who is Kashyapa Munindra Kulabdhi Chandra. He is the moon to the ocean of Kashyapa Maharshi's Vamsha. Just as when the Kshira Samudra was churned, many objects emanated, came forth. Many objects originated from that Kshira Samudra, the Chintamani, the Kalpavriksha, the Apsarastris, Airavata, Ucheshravas. Many such objects came from the ocean. But the Chandra, the moon, surpasses all of them. The greatest entity that emerged from the Kshira Samudra was the moon. In the same way, whenever we say that someone is like the moon of a Vamsha, we mean that they are the greatest of that Vamsha. Which is why we also have that famous song, Raghuvamsha Sudham Budhi Chandra. Here Rama is referred to as the Chandra, the moon of the Sudhabdhi, the Kshirasagara, that is the Raghuvamsha. So it means that Rama is the most illustrious scion of the Raghu dynasty. In this way, here also, Vibhandaka Maharshi is called Kashyapa Munindra Kulabdhi Chandra. He is the greatest of the descendants of Kashyapa. He is such an illustrious Maharshi. He is not, and Kashyapa himself is a Munindra. Kashyapa himself is a great tapasvi, and Vibhandaka Maharshi is the greatest of that lineage. Not just by his birth, but by his own tapas as well, which is why Vibhandaka, Srimad Vibhandaka Krita Agriya Tapaf Phalaya. Parameshwara is the tapaf phala of Vibhandaka Maharshi. And it is not just normal tapas that Vibhandaka Maharshi did, but Vibhandaka Maharshi performed Agriya tapas, illustrious tapas, the greatest of all tapas. What is this tapas? The Shastras give us various definitions of tapas. In one place in Mahabharata, we have tapaha swadharma vartitvam. Tapas is the diligent performance of one's duties, one's swadharma. In another place, in the Upanishads, we get tapo nanashanat param. There is no greater tapas than upavasa. In other places, we see in the Apastamba Dharma Sutra, niyamesha tapas shabdaha, a life that is followed with a rigid code of conduct is called tapas. Following that rigid code of conduct is called tapas, unswervingly. In another place, we get in another smriti, Manasaschendriyanancha yaikagriyam paraman tapaha. The single pointed focus to the exclusion of all else of the manas and indriyas is called tapas. It is this that we must understand that Vibhandaka Maharshi performed. And that too, it was agriya, it was exceedingly illustrious. What makes tapas illustrious? Anything becomes illustrious when it is sattvic rather than being rajasika or tamasika. Being sattvika is the mark of being illustrious. What is sattvika tapas? Bhagavan tells us in Gita, Shraddhaya paraya taptam tapastat trividhan naraihi aphala kankshibhiryuktais sattvikam parichakshate. That tapas, which is performed without any desire of the fruit, is called sattvika tapas. Aphala kankshibhiryuktaihi. When you perform tapas for the sake of tapas and leave the phala to Ishvara, that tapas is called Satvika Tapas. So, Vibhandaka Maharishi focused his mind single-pointedly on Ishvara and did not come out of that single-pointed focus for a long period of time. He performed this tapas solely out of bhakti towards Ishvara and not for the gain of any material benefit. That is why the Tungabhadra Mahatmya also describes to us how this Maharishi performed tapas. Krishnajina paridhanaha krita darbhasano munihi japan panchaksharim shaivim aste dvishata vatsaram. Krishnajana paridhanaha, wearing the skin of a black buck deer. Krita darbhasano munihi, seated upon the pavitra darbhas. Japan panchaksharim shaivim, performing the japa of the Shiva panchakshara mantra, the Namah Shivaya mantra. Aste dvishata vatsaram. He remained thus for 2 centuries, for 200 years, with unwavering focus. Vibhandaka Maharishi performed tapas for Parameshwara, repeating the Panchakshari mantra. For the manas to have ekagrata, for the manas to have single-pointed focus, it needs some alambana, it needs some support. So for Vibhandaka Maharishi, the support for meditation upon Shiva was the illustrious Panchakshari mantra. We will discuss the Panchakshari mantra and its greatness later on in the stotra, because the Jagadguru also has embedded that Panchakshari mantra in many places in the coming shlokas as well. So we will discuss the efficacy and the true purport and the Mahatmya of the Panchakshari mantra then. And in this way, pleased with Vibhandaka Maharishi's tapas, the linga that was named Malahanikareshwara came forth. Lingam pradurabhutasya Malahanikaram param. So, pleased by the Maharishi's tapas, the Malahanikareshwara linga appeared in front of him. It was not just Vibhandaka Maharishi that worshipped this linga, but also Shri Rishyashringa Muni Sevya Padambujaya. His Padambujas, this Parameshwara's Padambujas, his Pada Padmas, were worshipped by Rishyashringa Maharishi as well. Although there is yet another linga in Sringeri, located in Kigga, slightly in the vicinity of Sringeri, named Rishyashringeshwara. The linga there is named Rishyashringeshwara, wherein Rishyashringa Maharshi also worshipped Shiva and attained unity with Paramatma. He also worshipped the linga that appeared for his father. So it is this linga that was worshipped by both father and son, both Vibhandaka Maharshi and Rishyashringa Maharshi. Here the Jagadguru describes Rishyashringa Maharshi as Muni. Shri Rishyashringa Muni Sevya Padambujaya. The word Muni has a very particular meaning. We get Mananan Munihi, he who does manana of Paramatma Tattva at all times, he who is always contemplating the true nature of Paramatma at all times is called a Muni. In the same way, he that follows Mauna, he that follows silence, that is to say, he does not waste his words. As the Upanishad says, Vacho Viglapanam hi tata. He does not waste his words discussing worldly affairs. Rather, he saves his mind and his speech solely for the contemplation of Paramatma. In another place, we get in Veda, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Balyancha Pandityancha Nirvidya Atha Munihi. Having performed Balya and Panditya, one should be a Muni. So, different Vyakhyatas have explained this in different ways. The Bhashyakara describes it as Balyancha Pandityancha. So, these two words refer to the renouncing of all objects that are not Paramatma. So, not even paying attention to anything that is not Paramatma, and the renunciation of all Ishanas, of all desires. And then the Atha Munihi refers to the single-pointed focus upon Brahman. In another place, another Vyakhyata writes that Balya and Panditya refer to Shravana and Manana, and Munihi, the Muni refers to someone that does Nididhyasana, someone who, to the exclusion of all else, remains solely contemplating the Brahmatma Bhava. That person is called a Muni. So, overall, we get the meaning that Rishyashringa Maharshi was both austere, he underwent mauna, he did not speak very often, he performed great tapas, he was always engaged in the contemplation of Paramatma, and he was always established in the Nididhyasana process, the process of, to the exclusion of all other thoughts, solely focusing on the Advaita Bhavana, the Brahmatmaikya Bhavana. So it is such a Rishyashringa Maharishi that has worshipped this Parameshwara. And to such a Malahanikareshwara, Nityam Namostu. This Namaskara is not done once in some place in some time, but this Namaskara is to be offered eternally to Parameshwara. There is no one time or one place that is proper for the worship of Ishvara. All times and all places wherein we have the ability to do Namaskara to Paramatma is a fitting time to do so. To remind us of that, the Jagadguru concluded the shloka with the word Nityam Namostu Malahanikareshwaraya. In the coming verse, we will see, in this verse we have seen the relationship between the Rishi Parampara and Malahanikareshwara. In the coming verse and the rest of the stotra, we will see the relationship between now the Jagadgurus and the Malahanikara linga. Namah Shankaraya.
Namah